So hey guys, welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm actually going to be talking about a Netflix series that you can go watch right now on your Netflix service. It's a show called Slobby's World. And what kind of intrigued me the most about going into Slobby's World watching the show is it's a store in Arizona that's considered a vintage store, also a nostalgia store in a way too, and it specializes in things in the 80s and 90s, which is kind of something that's personal to me because I grew up in the 90s and I love things that are from the 80s, like movies and pop culture from the time and music and all that good stuff. So it's definitely a show that caught my eye right away just because I love so many things from the 80s and from the 90s. And it's somebody that sells stuff from that era. This guy who goes by Slobby Robbie, that's his name. Um, and he collects stuff, he buys stuff, you can trade stuff with him. He mostly specializes in clothing lines, specific stuff like from the 80s and 90s, like Gucci and MCM, and I think there was a couple of other stuff that he specialized in, like Tommy Hilfiger and things like that. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting show. It's a show that focused on some things that I wasn't quite sure about at first. I wasn't sure if I was going to get bored with some of the things in it. But it's a show that kind of caught my eye, and it has about 12 episodes to it. It's only one season. At least at the moment, it's only one season. And there's just a lot of things I want to talk about with you guys with it that are really interesting to me, things that I really kind of didn't realize regarding clothing, and things that I don't normally go out of my way to watch in like a show or a movie or things like that too. Um, so for the most part, Slobby's World focuses on kind of the business of this store. This I think it's called Generation Cool in Arizona, and it focuses on kind of where he gets the things from, like swap meets and conventions, and vendors from New York, vendors from Los Angeles, and things like that. And so that's kind of what Slobby's World focuses on, and I was pretty intrigued for the most part with this show. So for my positives and negatives of this show, first and foremost, it's very, very fun to watch. I guess kind of going back into the Slobby's World name, the reason why it's called Slobby's World is because the guy who owns the place, he likes the Garbage Pail Kids, those old trading cards from the 80s and 90s. And there was a character from that named Slobby Robbie, which kind of looks like him already when you look at the card, and they even show the card in the pilot episode of the show. And the name kind of stuck with him, and he kind of went by the nickname for a while, and that's kind of what people call him when they go into the store, is Slobby Robbie, based off that one Garbage Pail Kid card. But it's a very fun show. You can definitely tell they put a lot of time and personality into the show. They really kind of found clients that were personal to Slobby Robbie, and clearly people that do good business with him, and clearly give him a profit for his money and things like that. So it's a very fun show. I was intrigued from beginning to end for all 12 episodes on Netflix. It's also a very interesting show. Kind of going back into certain things to focus on clothing lines when you run a business like Generation Cool. Um, there's a business, and this actually is my next positive too, the difference between a real clothing line product and a bootleg clothing line product. What's interesting about that is there's people who are fans of Gucci or fans of MCM, and they like to kind of make their own version of a shirt or their own version of a purse. And so what's interesting is kind of how when Slobby Robbie has people who want to come in and trade, or people that he wants to sell to, he kind of shows them why it's a real product, or why it's a bootleg, or why it's an intriguing bootleg, and kind of something different that something like a Tommy Hilfiger or MCM probably wouldn't have ever tried. But there's a big enough fan clearly out there that tried it and kind of tooled around with it just enough to kind of make it its own little product. And what's interesting about that is sometimes if it's bootleg, it'll be valuable for a different reason than if it's something that's real and older and kind of hard to find. And so Slobby Robbie kind of clarifies throughout the show the difference between something that's valuable and real and something that's valuable and bootleg, and kind of how bootleg's a little bit on the rise, but how some bootleg kind of isn't so valuable as much as it is to others. And so I do like this intriguing aspect of the show of what's real and what's bootleg, and kind of where the value of both brands come into play for certain brands. Slobby Robbie also makes custom products for certain clients. One episode I really liked, I think it was the second episode, was a video game collector, which already I'm intrigued of because I'm a video game collector myself. Um, he makes custom products for certain people, and what he does is there was an episode where um, it's the same episode. I think it is episode 2, like I said. He made a custom pair of Super Mario Brothers 3 shoes for him. He took the yellow background of the box art of the game. He took the Tanuki tail off the Tanuki suit and kind of made a tail at the end of the shoe. He took one of the mountains from one of the levels and made that a side design on the shoe. He put a little Super Mario Happy Meal toy from back in the day onto the laces to kind of make it look like Mario's kind of going for a ride on the shoe. So there's tons of things that he does like that for certain clients that I think are really, really cool. He clearly sells them for a high value just because it is such a high quality product that he makes for them himself. He does make his own little custom shoes, like I said. I think he said he's one of the few people in Arizona that does that. So there's custom things like that that are really awesome that he sells in his store. He makes his own shirts and things like that too. So tons of custom things that he makes, and it's always interesting to see throughout the show what kind of custom products he has. He's also a very passionate person. I like how weird sound back there. I was just wondering what it was. Um, he's a very passionate person. He clearly is somebody that has took a lot of time in studying clothing lines and studying video games, studying um, things from the 80s and 90s and kind of how valuable they can be if he sells it to the right client and things like that. So it's clearly a very passionate person that puts a lot of time and effort into the store and really has a lot of clients because of it. It's a really, really cool show. The show also focuses kind of how the trading process works, how he earns profit, how people will come in and trade, get in-store credit, but just enough where he'll still make a profit of some kind. And so kind of the business side of Generation Cool is focused on too in the show, and I was pretty intrigued by it whenever they go over that stuff in the show. There's also some episodes where he visits some very loyal clients. There's an episode where he finds a American Polo stand of some kind, like a little standee, and it's worth a lot of money. And he found it at a swap meet for a very low price. He went to a person that kind of collects the Polo brand, like he found. And there's other episodes where he kind of meets up with similar clients in similar situations too. But he visits some loyal clients, and it's kind of interesting to see kind of how he makes a profit and makes a deal with them, and if they're a long-time client of his, how they will get a good deal on the product and things like that. So really cool things about the show that he does regarding loyal clients and even visiting their homes for some of them. I also like the editing of the show. I like how it's a show where when they're going to swap meets or they're going to thrift stores or conventions, it won't just focus on Slobby Robbie. It'll focus on other kind of employees that work for him at Generation Cool and kind of things that they find and people that they meet and products that they sell to certain people at a convention, not just the stuff that he's doing. They clearly looked at all the footage of all the employees that are working for him and kind of found the most interesting things to work with for each episode. So I really like the editing of the show. I really thought they kind of made all their hard work pay off in the end, and really was a great form of editing to do for a show like this. And like I said, there's also episodes where he goes to swap meets and conventions, and they kind of show kind of how he sells stuff to people and how he preps for things and things that he looks for to kind of get people interested in Generation Cool and things like that. So really, really cool show overall. For my negatives of Slobby's World, though, I thought there was a lot of episodes that did focus on clothing lines a little too much. So I would have liked to have seen some episodes that focused on more non-clothing brands. Um, so more episodes that were like the Super Mario shoe episode. More episodes that were like this episode where he sold valuable glasses to a client. More episodes where he's selling polo stuff to a client. So I thought there could have been more episodes where it's not just about the clothing line and him collecting stuff for clothing lines. That really would have made the show pop a little bit more and made it not so much just for the people who buy clothes, but for people who buy like video games and comics and action figures and things like that too. I also don't really know why the show wasn't ever greenlit for a season two, and who knows, maybe a season two is eventually on the way. Maybe COVID-19 played a role in that. Who knows what really happened, but I would really like to see a season two for this show. It's a really fun show to watch. I'm curious to see what other clients Slobby Robbie has, how he makes his business up and going, how he's still making a profit, and hopefully Generation Cool is surviving the pandemic, hopefully, with everything going on. Um, so I really would like to see a season two for this show. Hopefully Netflix will pick that up and will pay for a season two, hopefully, for the show. Hopefully Slobby Robbie himself is up for that. I would really like to see a season two for this show. One thing that's kind of odd about Slobby's World is it's a TV MA show, and really the only reason for that is because of the profanity. So there's just a lot of parts in the show where it's like, okay, is there really that much profanity necessary for this? I know they're trying to go for more of like organic, real client interaction kind of stuff, but if your show is going to be TV MA, you might as well go all out. And so if it's really just that rating just because of the profanity, I don't think it really warrants that very much. Maybe they could have censored things out or something. I also would have liked to have seen longer episodes for this show. There's just a lot of episodes where you can tell they kind of just ran out of time for certain things. So I think extending the episodes longer than 30 minutes really could have helped the show quite a bit. I think even making 50-minute episodes would have definitely added more meat to some of the quality and some of the things that are covered in certain episodes. Though it's not just end credits playing. Clearly, they don't have enough time to cover the rest of the things they want to cover, and now you're on to the next episode. So I thought that part could have been better. Hopefully, if a season two does happen, we'll get 50-minute episodes rather than just 30-minute episodes. I also would have liked to see more time in the actual store of Generation Cool. Yeah, it's cool that they're going out and they're going to New York and Los Angeles and meeting up with valuable clients and things like that. But there is some episodes where not a lot of happens in the Generation Cool store. I would have liked to have seen of kind of what's a typical day at Generation Cool. What happens when business is slow? What kind of things does Slobby Robbie do when there's a slower season, or um, how does he adjust to certain seasons? What does Halloween look like in Generation Cool? What does Christmas look like in Generation Cool? What does Valentine's Day look like in Generation Cool? So there's just things like that that I think the show could have benefited from just filming at certain times of the year. Maybe it doesn't have to be all in 1 week or 2 weeks of business. Maybe you can have episodes that were filmed during a Halloween time or during Christmas time and things like that. I would have just liked to have seen more things that happen in Generation Cool rather than just the couple of episodes that we got in season one. So, Slobby's World, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's a very fun show to watch on Netflix. If you need something good to watch for your next Netflix and chill, Slobby's World's the way to go. 9 out of 10 for me.